So,
Tense.
our last review of the day is going to be for Beetlejuice, but don't say it a third time because that's when he will appear. This is a legacy sequel. Tim Burton has returned there. I think the last Beetlejuice movie, which came out in 1988, is 36 years ago. I believe is when that
It's
last
quite a
movie.
bit.
Quite a long time for the sequel to this movie. And we've seen many legacy sequels over the course of time. Now, even one that just recently came out this year, Beverly Hills Cop, Axel F, which I thought was actually pretty solid. But we know the track record sometimes with legacy sequels, it can kind of go one way. It can be, hey, this is pretty solid. Or it can be like, what was even the point of you even coming back and doing this? And for example, like with Eddie Murphy with Coming to America, as we always bring up that example, is
Oh my
there
god.
with that one. So, is this kind of the case with this movie here? Hey, you got the original director back. You got a lot of the original cast back for this movie as well, like with Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice, like with Catherine O'Hara as Delia Dietz, with Nora Ryder as Lydia Dietz. But we have also a new addition to the cast, Jenna Ortega, who is kind of seems like Tim Burton's new muse in a sense. There, she appeared on his show Wednesday series there on Netflix there when she was the titular character. And she's the daughter of Lydia Dietz here in this movie. So, what's going on now in the world of Beetlejuice all these years later? Well, Lydia Dietz, she's no longer the sad emo goth girl there as we known before. Now she kind of does a show there about communing with the spirits. She can talk to the spirits there. She hosts this popular talk show there, kind of living that wealthy life. And she has a boyfriend played by Justin Theroux there, called Rory. She's estranged from her daughter there, played by Jenna Ortega, who character's name is Astrid. Very much distant from her daughter, bad relationship. And they all kind of come together and go back to the original town that was in the first Beetlejuice film after a death of her father, who her father name was Charles, I believe. Yes, Charles, I believe was her father's name. And if you want to know why that actor couldn't come back, even though he is alive, Google the actor's name and Google arrest, and you'll understand why he's not back in this
Yeah.
movie. But they actually do kind of a funny thing with his character.
Yeah, they do.
They do kind of a funny thing.
They do a clever workaround. It's fun.
Yeah. You also have Monica Bellucci, who's also a new addition to the cast as well, who's plays Dolores, who's the ex-wife of the Beetlejuice character there.
Yeah, she's the corpse bride.
Yes, the corpse bride there. Yeah, so that's kind of the setup here of this film is that they're kind of coming back for the funeral of Lydia Dietz, Winona Ryder's character's father. And while they're there, of course, they run into Beetlejuice again because it seems like he's been, still holds a little bit of affection for her character after all these years, even though it's kind of a little weird since he met her when she was a teenager. But I guess that's okay.
I mean, yeah.
Skip over that a little bit. I mean, he is a creep. It kind of fits there. But I'm passing you, Dusk. What did you think about Beetlejuice returning the 36 year sequel there?
If we look at a scale of legacy sequels from the worst, some of the worst, which is Coming to America, to the middling, which was oh my god, we just watched it. I barely remember it. Well, you mentioned it earlier.
Beverly Hills Cop.
Yeah. If Axel Foley F was like the most middling, it was so middling, I forgot about it. Where it's all right, but it could have been better. And Blade Runner 2049 is like the best of a legacy sequels. If that was the scale you're going on, this one kind of lands a little bit above Axel Foley F. It's okay. It's pretty all right, but it's got problems. It's not as bad as it could have been, but it does have some problems. I'm going to start with some kudos. I'm really happy to see him ditch a lot of the CGI and use real sets.
Yeah.
I'm really happy to see him using that. It really makes the feel of the movie. Using real sets, using real situations, having the weird angles that he was known for. This felt like a really big return to form after just seeing movies that he had been previously working on, like those god-awful Alice in Wonderland movies, or 2019's Dumbo, which may be one of the worst things I've seen along with those movies. This felt like a kind of return to a actually tactile form of filmmaking which honestly he works much better in. And you can tell there's a lot of passion in this. Whether it was well guided or misguided, I can't really say, but not at the moment. But I applaud the effort.
Mm,
The biggest problem with this movie, however, is as much as I want to applaud the effort, and I'll even say more to the priest. I think Jenny Ortega is fine. I think she's all right in this. It's always great to see Catherine O'Hara. I think she does a great solid job in this. I think Winona Ryder does is fine as well. I think everyone's performances, uh, aside from Michael Keaton himself, which I'll talk about later, do fine enough performances and give character. The biggest problem with this movie for me, however, is this script was a bunch of ideas that just don't connect. This
mm,
just is they're all B plots. It's like 36 years went by, and Tim Burton was like, I want to make a sequel, maybe one day, that isn't Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. Look that up. That was a real thing. That was the original sequel, and it went in development hell and never went anywhere. And that's true. Beetlejuice Goes Hawaiian. That's for real. So he went, well, besides that, what else do I have? And he thought about it for a while, and he had a bunch of different ideas, and then just decided, well, what if I put them all into this movie? That's what this movie is. Uh, Without spoiling anything, Beetlejuice is maybe like 15, 20 minutes of this movie, and everything else is a varying degree of something Catherine O'Hara is doing, something Winona Ryder is dealing with, something Jenny Ortega is dealing with. And it's just all these B plots that never quite congeal together and feel disjointed until they kind of get wrapped up at the end.
mm. Yeah, so with this movie, like you talked about, the legacy sequels you mentioned before, and like, okay, what more do you have to add to this universe? After so many years, and can you, even kind of live up to some of the other movies you've done in your franchise? You mentioned, like you said, the gold standard of something like Blade Runner 2049 or Top Gun Maverick or Mad Max
Hmm.
Fury Road. There, it feels like okay, you really got something more to add to this universe. And with Beetlejuice, it's just okay. I don't think it's nowhere near as good as the first film.
No.
I don't think it's as half as good as the first film. I think is it better than most of the recent Tim Burton stuff that he's put out over the years? I actually think so. I mean, his quality. I mean, like you mentioned Dumbo, you mentioned that one. You mentioned his Alice in Wonderland films, which I wasn't really a big fan of as well. It's and even before this movie came out, we were looking at the trailers. Like, what was the last really great Tim Burton movie that you really loved? And I harken all the way back to maybe that movie, maybe Big Eyes,
I was
maybe
really thinking Big Eyes or like maybe Big Fish. That was all
Big Fi
right.
Big Fish, and that was over a decade ago.
Yeah, it was.
So it's like, man, but here, he's back in this kind of element here. It's like, with this, um, going back to a lot of the practical effects that he's done there with like the views. So I do like that it wasn't just, hey, let's just do CGI again. Like, let's go to more of the practical stuff. But you mentioned like it's a lot of mini B plots, and that's what it kind of feels like the stuff with Monica Bellucci, who when you watch the trade, you think like, oh, she's kind of going to be like kind of one of
Yeah,
the big bads in this movie. She barely is even in this. Like
yeah.
she comes and goes, like literally like how she is, like the wind. She's floating into scenes, and she comes, and the camera loves her. I mean, Monica Bellucci's
I
gorgeous.
mean, absolutely. Even in dead like dead makeup, she's still absolutely smoking. She's gorgeous.
But her
Drop
whole
dead.
purpose, show up, suck some souls, turn people into Capri Suns packets, and leave the screen. And that's
Yeah,
it.
pretty
Like
much.
she really doesn't play a big part in this movie at all. The stuff with Jenna Ortega, where they get to the town, and I like Jenna Ortega. I like Jenna Ortega as an actress.
Yeah, she's
Um,
fine.
but here it's just okay. She's the bratty teenager. I mean, that's it. She's the bratty teenager, and she got a bad relationship with her mom, and there's a fallout because of what happened with the dad, and all that stuff. It's like, okay, I don't think there's really no depth there. It's just kind
Yeah,
of shallow in the way they kind of approach it. Um, so you got that kind of going, and when she meets this boy in town, you know where this is gonna go. Like
yeah,
after two scenes, you're like, all right, I already know where this is gonna go with this plot.
pretty much.
But I think it is funny. Some of the stuff, the humor is, I think, works. I was laughing and chuckling throughout most of the movie, especially Catherine O'Hara. She's a riot in this movie. She's really good in
Oh
this.
yeah, she's probably one of the best parts of this.
She's really good in this. Justin Theroux, who's the boyfriend, he's good in this. I think he works. William Defoe, you can never hate William Defoe. William Defoe's
Yeah,
always
even when he's barely in the movie, he's still William Dafoe.
He has a plot where he works as a dead actor who's still playing his role from when he was alive of a detective. There he
Yeah,
gets
because
some.
of an accident that happened on set,
Yeah, and
which I thought is a little weird because in the previous movie, Alec Baldwin is one of the main characters, and
oh.
it's his situation happening. That's kind of like a oof.
Well, in this one, I mean, he didn't do it. I mean, he did it to himself.
I know, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but, yeah. So I think you always can, get but William Dafoe, who's kinda in here, who's barely but when he shows up, he's fun. Michael Keaton, I think he's good. I don't think he's phoning it in here like he did with Batman and, what
Oh
he
my
did when he
god.
came back as the Flash in the
Yeah.
Flash movie. I think here is actually he's actually I think he loves playing Beetlejuice. I think he loves having fun with Beetlejuice, and they do a lot of good gags with Beetlejuice here. Good use of the F word, I think, here in this movie. The particular scene, I think I laughed. I thought that was really good there. Yeah, it seems like what do you think about Michael Keaton returning as Beetlejuice? You think he's having a
I
good time?
I think he's clearly having a good time. My biggest problem with him is just I felt like his performance was very pulled back.
Mm,
He's very just kind of in the first one. I mean, again, it's 36 years ago, so he's very manic. He's kind of all over the place. He's very characterized, a much of caricature, but he plays the character really zany and manic, and just like this really slimy salesman, but this is really kind of captivating at the same time because of his performance. And there are elements of that in his performance here, but in comparison, I don't know whether it's age, I don't know whether it was Tim or Michael, and there that was the direction or that what they're feeling. But he kind of played like a almost too cool for school version of this character where he has certain beats where he gets there, but I felt like most of the time he was either holding back or he's just been like, "Oh, look at this. Oh, I'm gonna do scary thing. Oh." And
mm.
again, I have nothing against his overall him playing the role again because I there are moments where you can tell, yeah, you're having a fun time slipping back into a role you haven't played that you clearly have a lot of fondness for. And his voice still carries. I think Michael Keaton's voice carries, but I just don't think his performance really allows him to carry that manic energy that did before. And I'm not,
Do you
and I
think
don't.
he is I
Mhm.
mean, Michael Keaton is, like, in his 70s? Do you think that's what it is?
I think it's a lot of that. I just think once you come back, it's very hard in legacy sequel after this long, almost 2 decades, actually 4 decades. Coming back into a role is gonna be very different. You don't have the energy you used to. But there again are moments where he's able to kind of capture some of it for a little bit, but you can
Mm,
definitely tell age has kind of caught up with him in this performance if that's not what he meant it to. But I still enjoy the performance regardless because he kind of captures a different vibe with a more too cool for school vibe to kind of I don't know to do something a little different with the performance, and I do appreciate that. But I just wanted to make note of that to anyone out in the our listening waves that's kind of what I noticed.
mm. And, Javon Guster, do you think he's better in this or the Fla oh,
Oh,
by
he's better
far
than this by
by f
far.
by far, he's
By
better.
far.
The
There's a clear difference, even if I'm saying he doesn't have quite the energy he used to, and he's kind of being more subdued, far more subdued. There's a difference between trying and clearly like enjoying a performance while trying, and I just came here for the paycheck.
Yeah. Here, I think he's actually having a good time. He's having fun with this. Like maybe, his age, obviously after all these years, he can't because like you watch the first Beetlejuice movie, he's on the ground, he's rolling around, he's
Oh yeah.
doing this, he's doing stuff with his arms, and it's stuff that you just I mean, he's obviously he still looks good. I mean, Michael Keaton still looks good, 73 years old, looks a good 73. But maybe just can't bring that, maybe that same energy there. But I still think he does a good job here. Yeah, and this is not that long of a movie either. It's only like an hour and 50 minutes, I think, this movie.
Yeah. For as much convoluted and I mean convoluted, not there's a lot of moving parts and so it's a bit complicated. I mean it's convoluted for the amount of time and the amount of B plots, unnecessary B plots there are in this movie. It felt like a lot of this was just kind of going, all right, a next B plot. Okay, waiting for the next B plot. Okay, next B plot.
Yeah. It doesn't feel like any of these plots really are too much there for character development. They're just there to move you to the next think.
Right. And
It's
then, and
just
then, and then.
yeah, it's just like, okay, yeah, and then has to happen, so this can happen, so this next thing can happen, like, okay, this has to happen with the Jenna Ortega character only just
Mhm.
because, we have to figure out a way, like, okay, what's the way we can bring Beetlejuice back again and then have that come and then do this and this. So, yeah, I do feel like there's a lot of that in the movie. Like, it's just a lot of series of that. But I mean, I still had an okay time with it. I think I enjoyed it much better than the trailer. I had kind of low expectations after seeing
Yeah.
when I saw the trailer, but actually seeing the movie, it's fine. It's all right.
Mhm.
There. I mean, it's doing pretty well in the box office. Like it opened, I think, with 100 million. Um,
Yeah, it opened pretty well, actually.
yeah, and even though they're talking about bringing it to digital in October, which I mean, I don't know. Maybe they'll uh, deny
I think
that after because of how
yeah,
well it's doing in theaters. Maybe you want to see it,
I
with
kinda would hold that back to maybe Halloween.
yeah, because I'm like, hey, I mean, people seem to be kind of enjoying this, making decent money
Yeah,
here.
let it go for, like, a month and a half.
Yeah. So I don't know, maybe they'll do that. But yeah, I mean, I think, it's enjoyable in parts. I mean, the humor I think it works really well with a lot of the gags and things like that. Like I
Mhm.
said, Catherine O'Hara, I mean, she really was, I mean, really one of the best one of my favorite parts here. Her and Michael Keaton's Beetlejuice. I mean, a lot of stuff that she did. I mean, every line she had, I was laughing at everything she was saying there. I mean, she's a good improv actress. I mean, good comedic
Yeah, I
actress,
mean,
Catherine O'Hara.
Catherine O'Hara has always been a great actress. It was so great seeing her, kinda get a small comeback in
Yeah.
recent years.
So that's impressive. So for me, and we didn't really talk much about Winona Ryder coming back here in this role. I think Winona Ryder is fine here there with some of the stuff she does. I feel like the movie doesn't overshadow her for a lot of the newer element, like her daughter, like Jenna Ortega, like doesn't go like, okay, hey, we're gonna push Jenna
Mhm.
Ortega because obviously Jenna Ortega is the big new young star here and everything like that. I think you still do get a good amount of her with Winona Ryder and kind of her stuff. What do you think about her in this movie?
I think Winona Ryder, she was that precocious, yet, uh, just very kind of, like, very goth like girl vibe. She really resonated with a lot of young girls at the time, and just also just people at the time. The goth kind of phase thing was really mid '80s to nine, all the way into the '90s. It was a really big thing, and this was kind of at the cusp where Tim Burton was getting his. This is like his third, fourth film in. He did Edward Scissorhands before that. He did his he a year after this, 1988, he would do Batman with Michael Keaton. So he was really in full swing of that kind of vibe. I think earlier on when Winona Ryder, which is this kind of resonated with a lot of people, and now I think she captures some of that, but more in a weird way. Winona Ryder is almost playing Tim Burton. She almost feels more like if she was a advert for a representation of the young kids growing up in suburbia and kind of wanting to rebel but not really knowing how to rebel, and so they had this phase of going through it, or at least a lifestyle they wanted to really be a part of. This movie feels more like a well, what this is like Tim Burton 36 years later. Yeah, I'm kind of a sellout.
Mm,
I got really popular earlier on, and I don't know what to do with my life now. And this tragedy kind of happens, and I want to kind of go back to my roots and see where I'm kind of at.
mm,
And I think in that way she kind of works well enough, but I don't really think she gets to really shine, or they don't neither overshadow her, but she never really gets to truly shine in the performance either. Again, there's just too many B plots. She never really like she has a situation where she has the relationship with her boyfriend, and they really don't really get to do much with that. It gets resolved really quickly, and there's not much over that. And she has a distance between her and her daughter because her previous, their relationship troubles beforehand, and something about her father, and that gets resolved in the end. Really, they spend so much time apart from everyone else in all these different B plots. It never really feels like these broken issues come together to make one coherent story. And so
mm.
she doesn't really get to bounce off of too many people, unfortunately.
Mm, yeah. And when she's bouncing off of Catherine O'Hara, I mean, who I think bounces off of everybody
Oh
really.
yeah, Catherine O'Hara is like a trained great comedic actress. and she
Um,
could just bounce off anybody. She could bounce off a mirror.
so the scenes that her when they do Winona Ryder and her, I think that works really well. I think those work pretty well there, because she
You put a
constantly
brick wall in front of Catherine O'Hara, and she'll sell tickets.
Because like when they're bouncing off each other as far as like, "Hey, you remember when you were a bitchy teenager to me?" Like, "Oh, yeah, this is good revenge," seeing the relation with you and your daughter. This is kinda good revenge seeing that. And as far as, sometimes what ruins a lot of legacy sequels, like, I don't know, maybe it's because I haven't seen Beetlejuice in a minute, but it feels like there's not, like, a lot of annoying callbacks. I mean, did you catch any of that? Like, scenes where it's just kinda like, "Oh, you have to bring this in from the first movie?" It didn't seem like they did a lot of that.
No, there's, like, some things they bring back, but it felt more careful than these usually legacy sequels, where it felt, "No, no, if we're gonna bring this back, it has to be because it has a point."
Mm,
Ironically enough, despite all the B plots that feel pretty pointless, the world in which they inhabit, Tim Burton seemed very passionate about that, where it's like, "No, this is a specific reason why this is here," and when he's working, that's the thing about Tim Burton. When he's working with his own creations, he's like a general. He really understands where his how his world kind of works and what to bring and what not to kind of do. But when he kind of takes over someone else's work or art or adapts it, he kind of doesn't have know where his limits are
mhm.
in a weird way.
So, what would you give it? What would be your rating?
I think this is I think this is a low tune in. It's not too bad. It could again, on the scale of legacy sequels, I think this is just above a little bit above the Axel Foley. Uh, I was a lot more interested in seeing an Axel Foley kind of, and I thought it was fine, but I wanted it to be better. This is it's fine. It's pretty okay. There's some moments here. Honestly, the stuff that's not directly tied to the original movie are probably the best parts, but there's basically B plots that don't go too far, and you go, oh, and then when you're finally gonna maybe getting interested in where they're gonna go, it's kind of wrapped up pretty quick. This movie just felt so disjointed in what it wanted to do, and that really hurt it in the long run. But despite that, I think there's enough fun performances. There's some great set design. I was so happy to see like stop motion stuff being brought back and really like everything kind of feeling real. What the CGI used appropriately. It felt like he was kind of going back and at least trying something different. And I appreciated that at least. Will I
Mm,
remember it after a week? A week later? I'm gonna be honest, probably not.
mm,
But I think for legacy sequels go, this one's not too bad. It's not too bad at all. It doesn't hurt the first movie. Doesn't hurt the first movie, but it's not gonna reignite my passion for the first movie either, and really want to see a continuation of this. I thought Beetlejuice was a good one shot that has stood the test of time that people still really love, and this one's an all right sequel. Weirdly enough, I think if they'd almost sticked to the animated TV series, they almost might have gotten something out of this. That the animated TV series is pretty wild, but I remember it being pretty fun. But I'm
yeah.
surprised he didn't use any concepts from that TV series to make the sequel. But
Was he involved in that at all? Do you know?
I think he was executive producer.
Okay. Yeah. So, I agree. I kinda would give it for me, I'd give it like a lowish tune in, maybe, stream it, maybe a
Maybe
high
to high
stream.
stream it. Yeah, I'm kind of with you around that area.
For me, if you're just eager to see if you're a big fan of the first Beetlejuice and you just go like, "I just wanna revisit the world again and, these characters again," it does a decent job at that, of kind of it doing a little bit more stuff in that world without being, I think, insulting to it or, kinda pissing on the first film. Um is it like I said, is it as good as the first film or half as good? No. Is it a decent film? It's a fairly decent film for what it is, and I got some good laughs out of it. There's some good performances in here, still people that are, have come back after all these years who put in some good stuff, and there's some good gags in here, like I said. What they do with the Charles character, what they do with him is pretty funny. I did like that kind of payoff there, what they did with that. Yeah, so I'd give it, yeah, like, kind of a lowish tune in, high streaming type territory there for me for, Beetlejuice there. So yeah, two kind of lowish tune ins, bordering kind of high streamists there for Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.